The last stand of the ISS Valor. In the cold void of space, where stars twinkled like distant memories, the ISS Valor drifted silently among the debris of what had once been a thriving human colony. Captain Ilara Voss stood resolutely at the helm, her eyes scanning the tactical display that flickered with alarming red alerts. Each beep echoed like a heartbeat, reminding her of the urgency that gripped her ship and crew. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but not outmatched in spirit. The Galactic Empire had tightened its grip on humanity, subjugating entire worlds under its iron fist. Advanced warships patrolled every sector, their sleek forms cutting through space like predators hunting prey. Ilara had witnessed firsthand the devastation wrought by these vessels, the destruction of cities, enslavement of her people, and an unyielding tide of despair that seemed insurmountable. Yet here she was, determined to fight back against an enemy that had taken so much from her. "Status report," she barked, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Shields are holding at 50%, replied Lieutenant Samir Patel, his fingers dancing over his console. "But we can't take another hit like that. We're running low on power." Ilara clenched her jaw, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. Her crew was more than just soldiers. They were family. Friends she had fought alongside through countless battles. "Divert all non-essential power to shields and weapons," she ordered. "We're not going down without a fight." As her command was relayed throughout the ship, she felt a surge of determination ripple through her crew. They were battered but not broken. Each one knew what was at stake. The Empire had threatened their very existence, promising annihilation if they did not surrender. But surrender was not in Ilara's vocabulary. The view screen displayed an ominous sight. 3 Imperial cruisers loomed ahead, their hulls gleaming menacingly in the starlight. They moved with precision, flanking the Valor, as if anticipating every maneuver she might attempt. "They're closing in," Samir warned, his voice laced with tension. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Ilara commanded, "and get me a firing solution on those cruisers." The ship shook violently as enemy fire rained down upon them. Alarms blared in protest while crew members scrambled to maintain control amidst the chaos. Ilara gritted her teeth. This was it, the moment that would define them all. "Fire," she shouted as soon as they had a lock. The Valor's cannons roared to life, unleashing a barrage of plasma bolts that streaked through space like vengeful comets. One cruiser took a direct hit, its shields flickering before collapsing under the onslaught. Explosions lit up the darkness as debris scattered into oblivion, a fleeting victory amidst overwhelming odds. But even as hope flickered within her heart, reality crashed down like a tidal wave. The remaining cruisers retaliated with renewed fury, their weapons unleashing hell upon them. The Valor rocked violently as impacts reverberated through its hull. "Shields at 20%. Samir yelled over the cacophony. "Divert all power." Ilara ordered again, her voice rising above the din. As they braced for impact once more, she couldn't shake off an unsettling feeling, a sense that this battle was merely a prelude to something far greater than herself or her ship. It was about humanity's will to survive against an empire that sought to extinguish it. Suddenly, an alert blared from Samir's console. A transmission from Imperial Command crackled through their comms system. "Captain Voss," came a cold voice laced with disdain from across the void. Admiral Cal Thorne himself, notorious for his ruthlessness against human resistance forces. "You are outmatched and outgunned. Surrender now or face total annihilation." Ilara met his gaze through the screen with defiance burning in her eyes. "You underestimate humanity's resolve," she replied fiercely. "We will never submit to your tyranny." A chilling laugh echoed back from Thorne before he cut off communication. "So be it," he sneered before issuing orders for an all-out assault. "Brace for impact," Ilara shouted as another wave of fire descended upon them. The ship shuddered violently. Alarms screamed in protest while systems began failing one by one. She could feel despair creeping into her heart, but pushed it aside. Her crew needed her strength now more than ever. "Captain, we're losing power in multiple sectors," Samir cried out desperately. Ilara took a deep breath. This was not how it would end, not today. "Prepare boarding parties," she commanded with unwavering resolve. "We'll take this fight to them." Her crew exchanged glances filled with uncertainty, but also fierce loyalty. This was their captain who had led them through thick and thin. They would follow her into hell itself if necessary. As they prepared for what could be their final stand against overwhelming odds, Ilara felt something shift within her, a spark igniting into flame, a fierce determination that transcended fear itself. "We fight together," she declared firmly, rallying her crew around her spirit once more as they steeled themselves for battle against impossible odds. The last stand of humanity aboard the ISS Valor had only just begun. This marks part one of single human Starship Topples, the Galactic Empire's advanced navy. The plan of attack. As the ISS Valor drifted through the darkness of space, Captain Ilara Voss gathered her crew in the ship's command center. The atmosphere was thick with tension, but beneath it lay a flicker of hope. They had survived the initial onslaught from the Galactic Empire, but Ilara knew that the battle had only just begun. The crew needed a plan, a bold strategy to strike back against an enemy that had taken so much from them. Rallying the crew, Ilara stood at the front of the room, her presence commanding attention. "We faced overwhelming odds and lived to tell the tale," she began, her voice steady and resolute. "But we can't just sit back and wait for them to come for us again. We need to take the fight to the Empire." The crew members exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of fear and excitement. They all understood what was at stake. They were fighting not just for their lives, but for the future of humanity. "Lieutenant Patel," Ilara called, turning to her trusted officer. "What do we know about their supply lines?" Samir stepped forward, his fingers flying over his console as he pulled up holographic displays of the Empire's operations. The Empire relies heavily on a series of supply depots scattered throughout this sector. If we can disrupt those lines, we can weaken their forces significantly. A bold strategy. Ilara nodded, formulating a plan in her mind. "We'll need to be stealthy. We can't afford to engage them head-on until we're ready." She paused, looking around at her crew. "I want you all to think outside the box. We need a distraction, something that will draw their attention away from our true objective." As ideas began to flow, Ilara encouraged her crew to brainstorm. Each member contributed unique insights based on their experiences and expertise. The energy in the room shifted from despair to determination as they crafted a daring plan. "Let's create a diversion," suggested Ensign Lyra Chen, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "We could simulate an attack on one of their smaller outposts while we hit a supply depot elsewhere." Ilara smiled at Lyra's suggestion. "That's brilliant. We'll split our forces. Some will create chaos at one location, while the rest infiltrate another." Preparing for battle. With a plan in place, the crew sprang into action. They worked tirelessly, checking systems and preparing equipment for their dual missions. Every member of the Valor knew their role and executed it with precision. As they prepared for launch, Ilara took a moment to reflect on how far they had come. Just days ago, they had been on the brink of destruction. Now they were ready to fight back against an empire that had underestimated them. "Remember," she reminded them as they gathered one last time before departure, "we are fighting for our people, those who have suffered under this regime. We are their hope." With renewed determination, they boarded their starship and set course for their targets. The first strike. The ISS Valor emerged from hyperspace near an Imperial supply depot located on a desolate moon. The landscape was barren, dotted with craters and rocky outcrops, a perfect setting for an ambush. "Stealth mode engaged," Samir announced as he piloted the ship closer to the target. Ilara's heart raced as she watched the supply depot come into view on the tactical display. It was heavily guarded by Imperial fighters and automated turrets, but they had anticipated this. "Deploy distraction team," she ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. A small squadron of fighters launched from the Valor, zooming towards another nearby outpost while broadcasting false signals indicating an attack was underway. As expected, Imperial forces scrambled to respond. "Now's our chance," Ilara shouted as she directed her ship toward the supply depot's weak point, the rear entrance where security was less vigilant. Infiltration. As they approached undetected, Ilara felt a surge of confidence wash over her. They were executing their plan flawlessly so far. "Prepare boarding parties," she instructed as they neared their target. The crew moved swiftly into action, donning tactical gear and arming themselves with weapons designed for close combat. Ilara led her team through a narrow access hatch that connected to maintenance tunnels leading into the heart of the depot. The air was thick with tension as they navigated through dimly lit corridors filled with humming machinery. "Stay alert," she whispered as they moved deeper into enemy territory. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility, a sign that their distraction team had succeeded in drawing attention away from them. Chaos unleashed. With adrenaline pumping through her veins, Ilara signaled for her team to move quickly. They burst into a large storage area, filled with crates marked with Imperial insignias. "Start planting explosives," she ordered urgently as they fanned out across the room. While some members set charges on crates filled with supplies meant for Imperial ships, others kept watch for any signs of approaching guards. Just then, footsteps echoed down the corridor outside. A squad of Imperial soldiers was heading straight for them. "Get ready," Ilara hissed as she took cover behind a crate. As soon as the soldiers entered the room, chaos erupted. Ilara and her team opened fire with precision shots that took down several guards before they could react. A narrow escape. Despite being outnumbered, Ilara's team fought fiercely, using their knowledge of tactics and teamwork to gain an advantage over their foes. Explosions rocked the facility as charges detonated around them. Smoke filled the air as alarms blared louder than ever. "Fall back. We need to regroup," Ilara shouted amidst the chaos. They dashed toward an exit point marked on their map while dodging incoming fire from remaining guards who were scrambling to respond to the breach. Just when it seemed like they might be overwhelmed, Samir's voice crackled over comms. "The distraction team is pulling in reinforcements. Hold your position." With renewed vigor from Samir's announcement, Ilara led her team toward safety just as backup arrived. Imperial forces were now caught between two fronts, one being attacked by Valor's fighters, while another faced off against Ilara's infiltrators. Victory at hand. As they reached their extraction point outside the facility, Ilara couldn't help but feel exhilarated by what they had accomplished so far. Their plan had worked beyond expectations. "Get aboard," she yelled as everyone scrambled into waiting ships that would whisk them back to safety aboard Valor. Once inside, and clear from immediate danger, cheers erupted among her crew. Victory tasted sweet after such dire circumstances. "We did it," Lyra exclaimed breathlessly as she high-fived Samir beside her. Ilara smiled proudly at her crew. This was just one battle won in a much larger war, but it was proof that humanity could strike back against oppression when united under a common cause. As they jumped back into hyperspace towards their next target, the heart of Imperial power, Ilara knew that every step taken brought them closer not only to liberation, but also towards reclaiming hope for all those suffering under tyranny across galaxies far and wide. Infiltration. As the ISS Valor sailed through the void of space, Captain Ilara Voss felt a mix of anticipation and dread. Their recent victory against the Galactic Empire had emboldened her crew, but the stakes were higher than ever. They were on a mission to infiltrate an Imperial supply depot, and failure was not an option. The lives of countless humans depended on their success. Setting the stage, the crew gathered in the command center, where tension hung thick in the air. Holographic displays flickered with data, revealing the layout of the supply depot they were about to breach. Samir Patel, lieutenant and Ilara's right hand, stood at the forefront, his brow furrowed in concentration. According to our intel, this depot is heavily guarded, Samir explained, pointing at the map. We'll need to be quick and silent if we want to avoid detection. Ilara nodded, her mind racing with strategies. We'll split into 2 teams. One will create a distraction while the other infiltrates from the rear. We need to disrupt their operations and gather intel on their supply lines. The teams are formed. Ilara assigned roles swiftly. Samir, you'll lead the distraction team. Create chaos at the main entrance to draw attention away from our true objective. She turned to Ensign Lyra Chen. You're with me on the infiltration team. We'll sneak in through the maintenance tunnels. The crew members nodded, determination etched on their faces. They were ready for this challenge. Remember, Ilara said as they prepared to depart, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone who has suffered under this regime. Let's show them what humanity is capable of. Launching into action. As they approached the supply depot in their cloaked shuttle, Ilara felt her heart race with adrenaline. The massive structure loomed ahead, surrounded by Imperial fighters patrolling its perimeter. Stealth mode engaged, Samir announced as he piloted their shuttle closer. Ilara's eyes narrowed as she studied the defenses. We're almost there, she whispered, her voice steady despite the tension. Moments later, they slipped past the outer defenses undetected and landed near a maintenance hatch at the rear of the depot, entering enemy territory. Ilara and Lyra exited the shuttle cautiously, weapons drawn and senses heightened. The air was thick with tension as they crept through dimly lit corridors filled with humming machinery. Stay close, Ilara instructed as they moved deeper into enemy territory. They navigated through narrow passageways, avoiding patrols of Imperial guards who roamed nearby. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility, a sign that Samir's distraction team had successfully engaged the enemy. Let's move, Ilara urged as they pressed forward. The heart of darkness. They reached a large storage area filled with crates marked with Imperial insignias. The sight fueled Ilara's resolve. This was where they could make a real impact. Start planting explosives, she ordered urgently as they fanned out across the room. While Lyra set charges on crates filled with supplies meant for Imperial ships, Ilara kept watch for any signs of approaching guards. Just then, footsteps echoed down the corridor outside. A squad of Imperial soldiers was heading straight for them. Get ready, Ilara hissed as she took cover behind a crate. Chaos unleashed. As soon as the soldiers entered the room, chaos erupted. Ilara and Lyra opened fire with precision shots that took down several guards before they could react. Fall back. We need to regroup, Ilara shouted amidst the chaos. They dashed toward an exit point marked on their map while dodging incoming fire from remaining guards who scrambled to respond to the breach. Just when it seemed like they might be overwhelmed, Samir's voice crackled over comms. The distraction team is pulling in reinforcements. Hold your position. With renewed vigor from Samir's announcement, Ilara led her team towards safety just as backup arrived. Imperial forces were now caught between 2 fronts, one being attacked by Valor's fighters, while another faced off against Ilara's infiltrators. Victory at hand. As they reached their extraction point outside the facility, Ilara couldn't help but feel exhilarated by what they had accomplished so far. Their plan had worked beyond expectations. Get aboard, she yelled as everyone scrambled into waiting ships that would whisk them back to safety aboard Valor. Once inside, and clear from immediate danger, cheers erupted among her crew. Victory tasted sweet after such dire circumstances. We did it, Lyra exclaimed breathlessly as she high-fived Samir beside her. Ilara smiled proudly at her crew. This was just one battle won in a much larger war. But it was proof that humanity could strike back against oppression when united under a common cause. As they jumped back into hyperspace towards their next target, the heart of Imperial power, Ilara knew that every step taken brought them closer not only to liberation, but also towards reclaiming hope for all those suffering under tyranny across galaxies far and wide. The cost of war. But even amidst their triumphs, Ilara couldn't shake off a feeling of unease. Each victory came at a cost. Lives were lost in battles fought against overwhelming odds. She thought of those who had suffered under imperial rule, the families torn apart, communities destroyed, and felt a fierce determination well up within her. "We have to keep pushing forward," she said softly to herself as she stared out at the stars streaking by outside their ship. For them. As they hurtled through hyperspace toward their next target, Ilara knew that this was only the beginning. The fight against tyranny would require every ounce of strength and ingenuity they possessed, but together they would rise to meet whatever challenges lay ahead. This concludes Part 3 of Single Human Starship Topples, the Galactic Empire's Advanced Navy.